All right, so let's finish this section up. We're going to go through pages 67 to 73. And here's the first time we get a good glimpse at Crooks. Our stable block, he is the only black man on the ranch. The only black man on the ranch. And his bunk is not with the other people. His bunk is in the harness room, which is just a little shed off the side of the barn. So this is where he lives. This is his place. He's been here a little longer than everybody else. I think he's been here all of his life, well, since his family left. But he's got a few pair of shoes, rubber boots, alarm clock. This is his place. He's proud. He keeps his distance and demands that others keep theirs. He is not allowed to go into their place. He don't want them in his. Even though it's just part of the barn, this is his space, okay? So he's sitting in there and he is rubbing liniment on his back. Liniment is just like an oil. Think about sort of like a vapor rub. So it's an oil that would make his back feel better. So he's rubbing this on his back because he got kicked by a horse at one point and his back is crooked and it hurts. And we have this idea of light show up, okay? Light is an inviting thing. I want you to think of it sort of as if, so the light shows up with George and Slim earlier. It says that it's shining through the window, and it's almost like a spotlight on the two of them when they were sitting at the table and they were talking about how Lenny and George met one another. So here we have this light again, a small electric globe through a meager yellow light. So now the light is sort of on Crooks. So the first time we saw the light, there was some friendship happening. Here's a light, so let's see if friendship happens in this case, right? So as soon as he sees Lenny in the doorway, a scowl comes on his face. So immediately, Crooks is not happy, right? Lenny is trying to make friends. He's trying to give a little grin to make a friend. And he's like, I ain't doing nothing. I just come look at my puppy and I saw your light. Look at this again and again. Here's another light. So he's like, well, I got a right to have a light again. There it is. I got a right to have a light. You go and get out of my room. I ain't wanted in the bunkhouse and you ain't wanted in my room. Well, here's showing Lenny's innocence again, because remember, this is in the 30s. Black people, white people didn't connect a whole lot, right? Very separate. There was a lot of racism going on. I don't know how much was going on out in California opposed to the South. I imagine that it was still there, especially considering Crooks is separated from everybody else. So Lenny has no idea why. So he's like, because I'm black, that's why. And so they play cards in there, but I can't play, and talks about some of the things that they say about one another. Well, Lenny doesn't care about any of that. He's like, yeah, well, I came in to pet my puppy and I saw your light. So I just wanted to come on in. Nothing. I saw your light and I wanted to come on in and set some. So here's light again and again. So definitely label this again and again. Why does it keep showing up? What is the author trying to tell us about the light? What does light inspire? Friendship? Camaraderie, makes it so that people are not alone. It's a warm feeling. It creates that tone or that mood, right? So Crooks is just staring at him. They're talking about the puppy a little. And finally, Lenny's disarming smile defeated him, meaning finally, Crooks is like, you know what? Fine. You're in here. Just come on in and sit down for a little bit. Crooks never has anyone in his room. Crooks never gets to have that friendship with other people. And the reason is because he's black. So here's Lenny, and Lenny wants to. So he's like, you know what? All right, fine. Come on in, have a seat for a minute. Come on in and sit down. And he's like, well, everybody's gone. They've all gone to old Susie's place, right? George is at old Susie's place with all the guys. The only other person that's here is Candy. And Candy didn't want to go to old Susie's place. He's in there sharpening pencils and doing figuring, which Lenny immediately tells Crooks. Well, why would he be doing figuring? What is that figuring for? Well, it's for the place with the rabbits. And Lenny continues to spill the beans. He just said he wasn't going to say anything, but he does kind of say something. It's kind of ironic because Crooks is sitting here and he's like, you know what? I know why George carries you around. He takes you around with him because he can talk to you and talk to you and talk to you. You don't understand a thing. You don't understand anything anybody's telling you. And he says, a guy can talk to you and be sure you won't go blabbing. I think that's pretty ironic because Lenny just blabbed the one secret that he was supposed to keep, that he just promised to keep, not tell about the place that they were going to get. But we'll see where that ends up. Brooks points this out to us. He's like, a guy talking to another guy, it don't make no difference if he doesn't hear or understand. The thing is that they're talking, or they're sitting and not talking. They're together. It's just being with another guy, that's all. Meaning having a friendship, having someone near you is so important. It doesn't matter if they understand everything you're saying. It doesn't matter if they agree with what you're saying. It doesn't matter if they just sit there and listen. Being around other people is really, really important. And Crooks doesn't have this. He doesn't have this. So he kind of gets a little mean-spirited here for a minute. Gets a little mean-spirited. Remember how George used to pick on Lenny when they were younger, and he'd tell him to jump off a cliff and do stuff? He did that to make himself feel big, kind of be like the bully, to be in charge for a minute. Crooks is about to do that. Crooks doesn't have anyone to talk to, doesn't have anyone to be with, doesn't have any kind of entertainment. And here's this guy come bumbling in, and he kind of feels like he has a little power over him. He doesn't have power over anything else. A little power over him. So he starts to kind of get a little evil. And he's like, hey, suppose George doesn't come back. Suppose he took a powder and he just ain't coming back. What'd you do then? Lenny's like, wait a minute. What? Huh? Crook's face lighted with pleasure in his torture. He's having fun. And Lenny is starting to get really amped up, right? Lenny's like, he's going to come back? What are you talking about? He's like, well, no one can tell what a guy will do. Maybe he wants to come back, but he can't. Maybe he died. Maybe he got hurt. And he's saying all these things, and Lenny is like, what? Wait a minute, George isn't hurt. George isn't hurt. He's coming back. What are you doing? And then Crooks really gets what I consider evil. And he's like, yeah, you know what'll happen if you don't come back? They're going to take you to the booby hatch. They're going to tie you up with a collar like a dog. Take you to the crazy house, right? Well, here's a warning sign from dogs. When dogs' eyes get small and they get really quiet and their ears go back, it means they're on the attack. Well, here's Lenny's eyes centered. He grew quiet and mad. Who hurt George? He wants to know, right? Crooks saw the danger as it approached him. Here's Lenny. Lenny is starting to come after Crooks because he thinks Crooks is saying someone hurt George, right? Who hurt George? Who hurt George? He's like, it's all right. George ain't hurt. He's going to be back. I promise. I was just supposing. That's all. What are you supposing for? Ain't nobody supposed to hurt George. Well, Crooks got lucky because Crooks was able to calm Lenny down. George is not hurt. Just sit down. Lenny growled back to his seat. Isn't that interesting that we say growled instead of went back or whimpered back to his seat? He growled back to, he's just sort of like, oh, can't believe you just said all that. Sort of like an animal. Again, we have this animalistic thing going. So Crooks just about got himself in some serious trouble.